Here we go. Movies now. Yeah, see, it needs a rap. That's what it needs. It doesn't need like a normal singing. It needs like a good rapper at the beginning. So. But here we are once again to the show called Movies Down Memory Lane, the show where three friends come together and they talk about the movies that mean the most to them. I'm Stephen Billings. With me, of course, as always, are two of my best friends, Dan Skip Allen, Andrew Cabral. What's up, guys?
And nothing much. Just watching some football, recording with you guys. Just Saturday, college football.
Doing the bachelor thing. You know,
yeah.
Just
got Sunday football tomorrow.
I know it's
big football weekend for me.
It's multifaceted weekend activities.
I always love coming onto this show so I can hear you guys talk about sports. I just love it every time. It's every time we're in the middle of like a game that has nothing to do with what we're about to talk about, and it's just I love it. Well,
we watched the movie and we can talk about it now. So
you almost have to multitask to get anything done nowadays. I think.
No, I know what you mean.
But
Saturday night's a tough night to just do like this. Like usually people are out doing things on Saturday nights, and we choose to come here and do this.
That's true. You know, I'm also always preparing for Chasing Labels. The next episode is this Monday, so that's always like number one priority. Then everything else after it. Well. But yeah. Glad to be back at Movies Down Memory Lane. The 2 weeks do go by very, very fast. I feel like we were just here talking about
literally
Dan's pick, which was Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
And now we're with Steven's pick, which is completely different than Empire Strikes Back.
I spent a week in Miami during that time. Watching movies. What else would I do instead of going to the beach like I wanted to do?
Well, you could say that the main characters go through a very existential crisis, both of them, in this movie, I guess. I mean, I would be depressive if I found out my father was like Hitler, like that killed a bunch of people, Wouldn't you?
I guess.
I'd feel a little weird.
You're talking about Empire Strikes Back?
I'm saying there's a comparability to last week.
About?
Yeah, what do you think I was talking about? You thought Emma Watson was?
I was like, that is not Perk being a Wallflower.
I was saying, you were saying that they were completely different, and I said, well, the main characters, Luke Skywalker, like Luke Skywalker, both should have very existential issues here.
Yes, they do
with family members.
And ironically, the characters aren't that far away in age. If you think about it, nobody really remembers that. Like Luke Skywalker during the original trilogy is like in his early 20s. Like we meet him when he's like 19, 20 in A New Hope. And those movies only take place over like 3 years. So by the time he defeats the Empire, he's like 22, 23 years old. He's super young.
Logan Lerman's a freshman in high school.
He's
playing a 15-year-old, which is not really. That's normal though. That's normal casting for Hollywood is, but Logan Lerman, I think at the time he was probably like 18, probably at least. Most of the time these kind of castings happen because of the roles of filming with younger people. So like,
of course, I think they make it a point now.
McGuire is 28 years old when he played Spider-Man. It was a sophomore in high school.
TV is even more so the case where they make like damn near 30-year-olds playing high schoolers. That was the whole model with the CW and the WB. I mean, I think if I'm going back to the Smallville days, Tom Welling was in his early to mid 20s playing like someone who was in like a freshman in high school. I mean, Michael Rosenbaum was like almost 30 and he was playing someone who's supposed to be years younger. I mean, and they were all interacting as if they were contemporaries, but they were age gaps all over the place. But that happens. But what's interesting about, Perks of Being a Wallflower, Stephen, your pick, is these characters all do look like high schoolers going through teenage angsty existential stuff.
High schoolers, yeah.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, like
Ezra Miller is the oldest looking one.
Probably.
And even then, they make it a point to be like, yeah, he's 18 and about to graduate.
Sure.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I think for sure, like at least, I mean, as usual, Dan's gonna probably have a very different feeling about this movie compared to us, maybe in a way, because he was in a different age when he first saw this movie. But me and Andrew might have a similar path on this, but for me, this film came out in 2012, and If you don't know, it's based on an acclaimed book, and it's script and direction of this is by the author of the book. So Stephen McCall, you guys have
McCoskey.
I say Chbosky. Is that not it?
Chbosky.
Yeah. So this was a very personal project, so, and I think it shows in the material. I think the movie shows that it's a very intimate, personal thing that was behind this, that somebody wanted to do. Because I think, unlike a lot of other coming of age stories, I think, we think John Hughes films and we think some other ones. We've even talked about Muriel and the Dying Girl before one of our podcasts. Like, it's hard to make a good one. Like, sometimes I think you see coming of age films and they come out and they're just trying to hit certain beats, but to really get one that like connects on a certain level with a certain generation, I think you got to have the right spices in there. And I think he gets the right spices, and all the way down to like the lighting of this film and just how far he goes with the psychology and doesn't go, and like, but for me, like the pathway of this character, played by Logan Lerman, Charlie, who is this kind of loner. He's had tragedies in his life, and he's going into high school, and he's trying to find his way, and he meets a group of kind of outsiders that like take him in. And that's really the movie. I mean, you don't want to give away all the plot points, but it's kind of a simple thing that is experiential more than it is plot driven. And I think, for me, I was already in my 20s. I was in my about mid 20s almost when this came out. And why this movie is so personal to me is because I've always, especially back then, I always felt like I was behind, I didn't feel like, I never felt like I fit in. I had like a couple friends, but like, everybody was going to college, everybody's doing things, and I wasn't doing anything. At least I didn't think I was doing anything. And so I always felt like I was behind. I was on the outside. I was in my head all the time. And so I very, very much connected with Charlie in this movie. And just down to things like, there were moments in the movie, like I can't remember what specific thing she asked him about. Emma Watson's character asks him about like, have you ever heard of it? She thinks it's a band she's talking about. I think it's Kings. She's talking about the restaurant they go to. You've ever heard of Kings? Oh yeah, I love that band. No, it's not a band. It's a restaurant. And that whole thing of like pretending something just because you want to fit in is something I know I've done a lot, just because I want to fit in, or just, liking something a lot because I'm really, like saying it's my favorite thing because I like it now. You know what I mean? Like you're just getting into something somebody introduced you to, and it's now your favorite thing. And that happens to Charlie in this movie. He gets it really into like the Smiths because he just discovered them, and now they're his like favorite. When somebody asks him who his favorite band is, he's like, the Smiths, man. Like, because it's cool. It's cool to say the Smiths are my favorite band. So it's like, all that stuff really connected with me. It made me really feel, I really saw myself in him. Now, not everything that happened to Charlie in this movie are things that happened to me. And I never would consider of myself have ever gotten as low as his character gets in this movie. But I think I felt a lot of them same things. And yeah, that's just where, and when this came out, we had like a $2 movie theater at the time. And I went and saw that movie in theaters like, probably like 8 times, 9 times, just because I took different people back every time to see it. So yeah, it's a really personal movie for me. We can get more into like how other people, like I've heard some negative things, I'll get into them, but like, yeah, I want to hear what you guys think. Dan?
Yeah, well, look, I can relate to some of the things in this movie because I was a kid. I was a teenager.
You were a kid? You were a kid once?
Yeah, I was a kid. I wasn't an old grizzled guy like I am now. Yeah. I feel like I've been an old grizzled guy for quite a while, though. So, but I can relate to the movie in some senses because looking for a group of friends, you try to find somebody that you can hang out with and go and do things with. I found that, and I ended up finding that with coaching. I got into coaching and found a group of friends that way instead of just a bunch of high school kids. Because I went to 4 high schools in 4 years. So two up north and 2 down here in Florida. So it was hard for me to make friends. I was closer to my own brother than I was anybody else. So,
well, that's normal.
But
that's how it should be.
But the teacher relationship with Logan Lerman to me was the thing that I resonated with the most here. Like being friends with the teacher giving him the books to read, him doing the reports and stuff, and finding like learning about all this stuff via the books and stuff that he was getting from the teacher, the Paul Rudd character. That to me was the most resonative thing to me, because I always related to adults, even when I was a young age. Adults, I felt like I was more closer to adult figures than I was people my own age, So the Paul Rudd character really meant a lot to me rewatching the movie, and his relationship with giving him the books like The Great Gatsby and To Kill a Mockingbird and all these different books he got. But also, like you said, the music was good. I was learning about music at a young age, and I was getting cassette tapes of the British Invasion and all these bands. And then some kid would come to school with Bon Jovi. The next week it would be Poison. The next week it would be Motley Crue.
When you're a kid, you fall in love things really fast.
And
honestly, till today, I still feel like I'm a kid in that way. Sometimes I get really obsessed with things when I really like them, and so
So I'd learn about music that way with cassette tapes and stuff like that. People would give me a cassette tape with a bunch of songs on it and stuff, and then I learned how to do that, and I would give that to. I would make cassette tapes and give it to people, because. Or CDs or whatever it was. So, But there's things in here that I can relate to, and there's some things I can't relate to, what Logan Lerman's character goes through in the framing device is a little bit out there for me.
Yeah, we'll get a little bit into it. Of course, we won't go. I won't want to go any further without saying, as I should probably at the top of every episode, we do get into spoilers in this show because this is a trip down memory lane. We got to get into some of the stuff. You can't really talk about something in detail without getting into some of the detail. So
and the movie's 13 years old at this point, which is kind of baffling to me because I felt like I just saw this the other day.
I just feel like I took many trips to the theaters just the other day.
What's crazy? So theoretically, I've had this Blu-ray in my collection now for 13 years because I bought it as soon as it came out, because I remember I had seen it, I think theatrically when it had come out, and then I bought it, and then I actually kept showing it to people because I'm like, you have to see this movie, because at the time that it came out, although it had Emma Watson in it, who of course was coming off of all the Harry Potter films, because I think the last Harry Potter movie was like a year or two before this. She was still very much popular.
I think the last one was the year this came out.
Yeah, it was either 2011 or
2012.
around there.
Yeah.
And she, of course, but this was a kind of a low, under the radar indie film with a bunch of people in it who obviously we know who they are now, more so because their careers have gone on. Logan Lerman, Ezra Miller, Emma Watson, we knew, but there are people who pop up in this movie that that of now.
Yep.
That have gone on to be in other things or were even somewhat known at the time. Like the parents in the movie is Kate Walsh and Dylan McDermott.
Yep.
No one, I don't think, remembers Dylan McDermott. He was kind of not a popular guy, but I remember him around that time. His sister in the movie is portrayed by Nina Dobrev. Nina Dobrev was another kind of indie actress of the time, and she's kind of not disappeared. She's still working, but very much under the radar now.
A cameo by Julia Garner.
Yeah, Julia Garner is in one. She has no line. You just see her and they mention her name, and she's a big actress now.
She was a friend of Charlie's in middle school, but now they're in high school.
Who doesn't talk to him anymore?
Doesn't talk to him anymore. Melanie Linsky
plays the aunt in the movie, who is a pivotal role. In the movie,
framing sequence. In the framing
sequences, and really what is an underlying thing that throughout, Charlie's life in here. The movie, for Steven, and it was what just kind of piggyback off of what Steven was saying, this movie definitely had a profound effect on me at that time. Had Steven not picked this movie, I would have picked this movie eventually to talk about on
Thank
Movies
God
Down
I
Memory
got to
Lane.
it. You
He
got
to it
to
first.
almost famous before
I
I could.
did get, so it's like
Yeah.
I got one of his, he got one of mine.
I think that's why I picked it. I was like, he ain't fucking taking this one.
Yeah. So there's an overlap here because Steve and I are closer in age. So when Steven probably saw this, I was like 25 when this came out.
Yeah.
So I was still within that realm of, not being sure about life and trying to figure out life and all that kind of stuff. What's interesting is there are a lot of movies dealing with, teenage angst and teenage existential crises, trying to figure out, who you are, who you want to be, because you're going through so much change in your life. Adversely is I feel like there needs to be more movies about people in their 20s going through that, because that's also kind of a continuation of your adolescence from your teenage years over. You're really trying to figure out what you want to do as an adult while you're an adult. But to get back to this movie,
I was just say, let me comment on that real quick. Is that I think Judd Apatow tried to do that, but his movies are so raunchy and over the top that I think people don't end up paying attention. I don't
think the message gets across.
Yeah, it doesn't get across. But like, I'm with you. Like, I think we're part of a generation that we had a lot of you get a lot of advantages because of the way the world's advanced and things like that. But also, it creates a lot of like noise in people's minds, I think, to not knowing what you want to do with your life, because there are so many things to do now.
Very much so.
So,
and this is a whole off the track thing where like there are certain societal expectations and traditions that are placed on us, the millennial generation and the generation subsequently after, that a lot of them are now kind of kicking back against. Like you got to go to college because you got to get the good job because that's the key to life. Well, sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes people have to go down their own paths and find their own ways and things like that. And that's a lot of, and that's what existentialism kind of is. But going back to this movie, what's interesting about this movie is that it's set, I think, they don't really say quite when it's set, but it's set in 1991.
Yeah.
So early 90s,
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania, 1991
Pittsburgh, specifically.
The book, his first letter references 1991. So it's
and the book I think came out in 1998, 1999.
Yeah,
and it is based somewhat on the author's own ideas in life and things like that. But what is interesting is I want to say is that even though the events are set in 1991 and there are certain dated aspects to it, Dan referenced the idea of mixtapes and cassette tapes and CDs. That's very much a thing of the time. There's no cell phones in this movie. People are having to use house phones and rotary phones and stuff like that, and old cordless phones that are way out of date now and things like that. But the messages and the themes in this movie are so timeless.
No, yeah.
They're so good. Like because I experienced them during my high school days as well, and I went to high school in the early 2000s versus 1991, and this whole concept of perks of being a wallflower, this idea of feeling ostracized, feeling weird, feeling like you don't fit, and all of that stuff. I think every generation goes through that, and everyone can kind of go through that. I mean, in the movie shows like this idea of different cliques and different subcultures within high school, within teenagers and all that kind of stuff. Like you have the sports kids, you've got the weird kids, you've got the brainy kids, you've got all this kind of stuff. And I feel like we all went through that. So this movie is so multi-generational and all the things that it got into. And for me personally, I talked about when we did Almost Famous about seeing yourself in a movie. I feel like I see myself more so in the Logan Lerman character than in a lot of other characters in movies. Like rewatching this movie brought back a lot of things that were like, yeah, I understand all of what he's going through on a very personal level. Not specifically what he went through, because as Dan mentioned, there is something in this movie that is rather specific and rather unique. Going through a childhood trauma that he went through and not being able to process it and all that stuff. His specific childhood trauma. And trauma is a big thing in this movie. And I feel like we've only started talking about like PTSD and trauma within children and how it extends past childhood and into adult life really only in modern times, with the whole focus on mental health and things like that in modern times. This movie's got a lot of that in it. And for to be commenting on that like 30 or so years ago is rather ahead of its time, even if story-wise. So this movie,
Steven, I want to ask you a question.
Good. That's what we're supposed to be doing for the person that's at the center.
Yeah. Well,
thank you.
I felt like I could relate to the Logan Lerman of this kind of like this character that's off in the fringes, watching everybody else, and then he's writing all this stuff down. Is that how you felt when you were in high school? When you were like a teenager, were you like the guy in the corner and just kind of watching everybody and just observing everybody and kind of learning from your classmates and learning from your teachers and learning from your environment? Or were you more of a popular kid? You did have a group of kids and friends and stuff like that?
Oh, I would say, honestly, if I looking back on it now, like I feel like it's a combination of both of them things, because I did play baseball, so I would say I knew people, but there's a difference between being associated with people and actually spending time with them on like any kind of real level. Because like these people, I would go play baseball, but then outside of that, I would never see them. So it was more really I only have one friend that I would consider from high school that is a true friend. And that's my friend Daniel, who's like, I still am friends with today. I still talk, we have real conversations. Like that's but even then I would not say I would have conversations like these people had in the movie. You know what I mean? Like I felt like I knew people, but I was always on the out. Like I was never open enough with anybody for anybody to know me, because I was too scared to be that open.
Oh yeah.
You know, and yeah, so and I did have a similar, like you said, Dan, with the teaching thing, but this was in middle school. In middle school, I had a teacher that recognized that I was into writing and like contacted my parents, like talk to them about like, see, he seems to be really into writing. Like you should, you know, like, and so he helped cultivate like this thing in my mind that I wanted to, you know, to be a storyteller. So like, that connected with me as well. Like, except for that, you know, unfortunately it never pushed, it got transferred over into like wanting to do movies more than to be like a writer.
Yeah. Same path here.
Yeah. So,
I actually wanted to be a writer. And that was kind of a potential path for me as well. And there were teachers, of course, who did foster that at during my educational career as well, specifically in middle school and in high school. It leaned actually more towards history. That ended up being where I leaned more towards. But obviously, people don't know there's a lot of writing in history, a lot.
Oh yeah.
But it was also always a combination
between I love
history
too.
Literature and history. You know, even when I went to college, I was a history major. But of course, I took a lot of literature courses as well. I read a lot nowadays as well. And I actually, I did some writing, blog writing, movie review writing and stuff like that. But then that ended up translating over into doing the podcasting and the YouTube stuff and whatnot. But similarly to kind of what Stephen was saying, I very much felt like I said, very close to the Logan Lerman character. Literally in the background, out of sight, nobody talking to them, and just having an inner monologue by yourself. Just analyzing the situation.
Well, honestly, the thing is, I would say this though, and this only comes with time, and not even just like thinking about my past, but also thinking about the person I am now. I do think that one of the differences, the way you describe that, that you were sitting back and kind of being a spectator. I don't even think that I was I don't even think I was as far as being a spectator more than I was kind of passively going through life, just kind of floating through, not really taking much note of what was around me. I was just trying to make it through. You know what I mean? Like
just move from one moment to the next.
Because that's the clear difference. Like Logan Lerman's character obviously is smart, and he's hyper focused on like literature and wanting to be a writer, and like he has an outlet. He has something that and maybe mine was music a little bit, but I don't even think I couldn't play guitar. I liked singing was probably the closest thing I came to, but like I honestly think that was something about that I can't really. I think I was a little different. Like I didn't even when I think about that time in my life, I can barely remember anything. Because I don't think I was really, it was such a blur because I was so in my head that I wasn't spending enough time actually focused on anything around me. and so it's all just gone. It's just not. I wasn't aware. I wasn't an aware person at that time.
I was so hyper focused on ironically schooling, then that's what I remember the most. Similarly to kind of what's interesting is that Logan Lerman's character had way more of a social life in this movie, as standoffish as he was, as much of a wallflower as he was, than I did.
Well, I was going to say
I was,
his story in this movie was me in my mid-20s going into my it got transferred.
Actually hit me. You're right. The way Logan Lerman was in this movie when he was going over to friends' houses and hanging out with them, and they went to like Rocky Horror, they went to like other events and whatnot. That was me in the early 2010s.
Yeah.
So when this movie came out, I saw myself in him a lot.
Yeah.
That wasn't me when I was younger. So I'm kind of a late bloomer when it came to like social.
I'm exactly there with you. Yeah.
Yeah. So like literally in early 2010, I brought this movie over to my friend's house so that we could watch it. You know what I mean? Because I was like, I see myself in this, and you guys kind of remind me of that as well. And they loved the movie. They definitely saw themselves in it.
Did somebody say, "Look, I'm not the gay guy"? No, I'm just kidding.
No, they did not. But it's interesting, is that, like, such a cross section of people in this movie, of like different walks of life, different areas of life, different diverse groupings of people, and it gets into all of them and all of their issues, which I thought was really fantastic. So and this was actually my first. I had never seen Ezra Miller in a movie before this. Yeah. I had never seen Logan Lerman. This was very early.
This was really his debut, really.
I think he may have been in Percy Jackson
maybe
before this or after this. It was around that time, but I hadn't seen because Ezra Miller was in We Need to Talk About Kevin. They were in that Lynn Ramsey film. And that was kind of their breakout role, if you will. And then afterward, of course, they went on to other indie things and whatnot. Of course, The Flash and all that stuff. Yeah. But Emma Watson I had known. But yeah, and then, like I said earlier, there's a lot of other people in this. But yeah, Logan Lerman in this movie is kind of the way I was in my mid-20s in terms of social interaction with people and whatnot.
Sure.
Heck, they would do, ironically, is Rocky Horror. I knew people at that time who were doing live-action Rocky Horror. So I was like, this is very similar to what's going on now.
Yeah, I had friends that did it as well. But I have two more questions I want to ask you. Do you feel like we get the Breakfast Club and the Richard Linklater movie and these other movies that were like a time capsule of a certain group of kids in a certain group of American Graffiti. What's the Linklater one?
Dazed and Confused.
Dazed and Confused. What's the one?
Everybody wants some.
Everybody in 8. What was the one in 80 by a woman director?
Ordinary People.
No.
80, 81.
The high school one.
Yeah. With Sean Penn and them. That we've gotten this
Ridgemont High.
Yeah. Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Yeah, Fast Times at Ridgemont. We've gotten these movies every so many years, and they deal with this subsection of society, a group of kids in the subsection of society. But I feel like this one kind of takes it to a different level where there's relationships in here that you don't really see in movies about high school kids. And it's like, it's like, all right, now we're in another decade of movie making that's touching on these subject matters that we haven't really touched on in the past, like especially specific relationships. But to follow up that question, Stephen, is like, if some girl just started hitting on you and she started being buddy with you and this, and asked you to the prom and she kissed you, would you just originally just say, yep, I'm going to get in a relationship with her because she kissed me and she asked me to prom? So it's obvious yes for me.
Well, the thing is like, and that's one of the main things I think about sometimes when I think about my past, is that I was too scared to even get that far. Like I was, I had a girl. I remember I had a girl. I was a little younger than her, and she asked me to her first prom, and I was 2 years younger than her. And she was like a neighbor in the neighborhood, and I guess she thought I was cute and asked me to her prom. And I could have, things could have happened for me,
right?
A lot, you know what I mean? Like I could have had experiences a lot earlier if I would have taken chances and wouldn't have been so scared to do it. but yeah, I wouldn't have even gotten that far. And then when I got into high school and I had some more opportunities, yeah, I would get like, I would misunderstand things, or I wouldn't even notice things, or I wouldn't even like it. Just that type of language wasn't something I had experienced, so I didn't. I would be very awkward and not understand. Like
because she obviously loved the other girl. He didn't really love that girl, but she was so forward with him that he kind of got involved with her.
You're talking about
Mae Whitman.
Yeah, Mae Whitman's character, which is Mary Beth.
Yeah,
that's her name.
Yeah.
And she kind of like does everything for him. She like,
yeah, he even said it, like he didn't like feel the way she felt about him, but he was too nice of a person, or he was kind of a people pleaser. He didn't want to let this person down.
Well, that, but also it's like sometimes when you're an unexperienced person, sometimes it's good to get like somebody that's like really forward to like to
be the initiator,
to make up for what you can't do. So probably for him, even though it was a bad experience at the time, it was probably good that he went through that, so that when he finally, got to, a chance to, he took as you saw, I mean, now there's layers to this movie, but like,
right.
He takes this opportunity to the movie to kiss the girl he actually likes in a really inappropriate way, in a way that really was fucked up. But like,
looking back at that, it's like you can see his naivete right there.
I think there's a disassociation. I think
in
that moment.
Like he doesn't know social cues or
the thing
awareness.
is right before that moment, he pretends like he's asked the question like, how's your first relationship going? And you get the first in his mind reaction, which is, I wish one of us was dying from cancer, basically, so that I didn't have to break up but really, then reality breaks back in. And I think that that's an indication of his mindset at this time where, we know he's going through something. He's had mental issues. So we know that sometimes he forgets, I think, that whether he's in his head or not. And I think in that moment he wanted to kiss her, and he did. And before, he would have never even been in this situation, and so the lines cross sometimes, I think. And so there's layers to, I mean, I would, because I've some people negatively criticize this movie for not going deep enough on mental illness. And I'm like,
yeah, I saw that same criticism online. And I'm like, the movie is trying to do that, but it's also trying to tell a story as well.
Well, it's trying also, to be. If you want to get into mental illness on some really deep level, go watch a documentary or something. Like, it's not like we explain about a lot of things. Like I know Dan feels a little differently about this. You can't go to something like this as like the straight up facts of something, and you can't teach things when they're very stunted. They're not meant to be. These are moments. Movies are a collection of moments. Yeah. They're not going to tell the whole story.
And so, it's tough with mental illness, because I feel, this is just my perspective, is that everybody, like, mental illness is different for everyone. Everyone is their own specific case of how they deal and how they go through and how they battle it and all this kind of stuff. So to kind of like say, oh, this movie doesn't do it right, it's also kind of a little bit disingenuous, because like it's just telling one specific version of someone's mental health journey.
Yeah, exactly. So it's I think if you want to feel that way about it, you can, but I think that ultimately the movie does a pretty solid job of making us feel the isolation that Charlie feels in the movie. I mean, even some of the visuals are really, I mean, like the scene where he's walking back to his house after leaving Sam, and like you see him in three different versions.
He's having this kind of out of body experience.
Yeah.
You've heard people who've had mental breakdowns say things like that. Having it out when he calls his sister, and she automatically knows that something's going on.
Yeah,
because
he's
because she knows what her brother's been through in terms of his mental health journey. So she knows immediately that she has to act right away. Because people around you, if they are aware enough and they care about you enough, and they've got some type of inkling about these things, they will know how to react properly in the moment. Some
Yeah.
people don't recognize that people around them are, mentally deteriorating. They just don't see it. But she knows right away, and you can see that, when his brother comes back to visit, he asks him, how you doing? How you doing with all that stuff you've been going through? So we
Yeah.
get a sense of like, oh, he's going through stuff. And Charlie comes out and tells him that, I still have moments, but I'm able to battle them now. I'm able to turn them off. I'm having these thoughts. I'm able to turn it off. And for those of you who've had mental health issues in the past, I feel like all of that is very familiar. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? People with anxiety, people with depression, the mental aspect of it all really takes over and really becomes a battle within yourself. And I feel like this movie displays that throughout, and you see the cracks because
Yeah.
mental health is is an ever continuing journey. So there's going to be ups and downs, cracks in the facade, all that kind of stuff, and you see it throughout this movie how he's slowly getting worse and worse until the very end,
And,
and then we get the revelation of it all.
there's different examples of people going through it in different ways. Like there's,
Mm,
of course, our three main characters. You see Sam, who is, and I guess let's go ahead and drop the bomb on it. I guess her character goes through a similar thing that Charlie does. They
mm.
both have been sexually abused when they were young kids, and so they, she was taken advantage of by a lot of men in her life, and then
Older
now she's at a age where she's kind of like dealt with, she's still dealing with it, but she's more mature now, and she's like able to like kind of handle it, but she's also, Charlie's picking up on things that are affecting her because, or her, even her, all of her friends, her brother, her stepbrother, and everything. They're all picking up on like the things that she does. She's like dating this like really, like
An older guy.
older guy that's annoying and preppy and
He's like a
pretentious.
college age douchebag.
Yeah, yeah. The person she shouldn't be going for. And that's one of that's probably the best line in the movie. Like he goes talk to Paul Rudd and says, "Why do people date people that are not good for them?" And he's like, "Well, people accept the love that they think they deserve."
Right.
So
They
it's
look for
about
love in all the wrong places.
self-worth. If you have self-worth, you look for people that you feel meet that need. And
Yeah.
so
And it's very, I don't know if it's quite mentioned in the movie, but I mean, obviously, we're talking about what Charlie went through with his aunt. And from what we understand, is that Charlie's aunt was also a victim of sexual assault as well.
yeah,
So there is a whole idea of people who do commit these acts were victims themselves originally, and
yeah.
they're kind of continuing this, horrific cycle. And that's within the movie as well. Now, some of these aspects, I guess you can criticize that are somewhat underwritten. Like there really is only one scene with Emma Watson's character discussing that. Obviously, it's a little more extrapolated on once you see like, oh, she's involved with an older guy. That could be because of what she went through when she was younger and
Sure.
all kinds of other stuff. We can speculate on that. You know, with Charlie, it's a whole. It's more more developed because he's the
It's a
main
little
guy.
more
He's
developed. Yeah.
he's the main character of the movie. We're going through his journey. We're going through
I mean,
what he is doing.
like a lot of good acting does, it elevates it. And I think the good acting in the film elevated the material to where not every, I mean, and I think that it's just, this is what movies, I think what great movies that stand the test of time do is they don't over explain shit. Like you don't, I
This
mean,
movie
like,
doesn't really spoon feed things to you. You know what
no,
I
no,
mean?
no, no, no. If you're a self-aware person and you're somebody that has, you know, looked into these type of things and pay attention, like you can take something from it. You don't have to be given every detail about like the things that happened to Charlie or the things that happened to Sam to understand that these are hurt people that have a certain amount of experience in something that most people don't. And that's why they do have that, I think self-awareness of things around them. They
Yeah.
see things because because they're more mature in a way that most people aren't, because they've had this experience that most people
Yeah.
don't have.
There's this thing where, people tend to mature faster because of life experiences.
Usually
People
sexual stuff.
Yeah, specifically
but,
things like that. And what is interesting is that, to frame this whole movie within the context of teenagers, where all of that stuff is going on, where teenagers are experiencing so many different things. I mean, in this movie, you see experimentation with drugs and sex and alcohol, and they're being exposed to all kinds of things like that and whatnot in various ways. And that seems to happen throughout every generation of people. I mean, it happened when I was in high school. It probably happened when my parents were in high school back in the 70s, and it happens now with modern generations. What is also interesting in the movie is that it does definitely cover a lot of LGBTQ plus
yeah.
themes as well, with Ezra Miller's character
He was my
being
fucking favorite character. I loved his character in the movie.
he
Like,
was yeah
I
they
wanted him to be
played
my
it to the
friend.
nine. They
I was
played it
like,
to the nines.
yeah.
Yeah, Ezra Miller played this
and
role very well.
in a certain
Complex.
specific, in a specific moment, like Dan talked about how it covered things that didn't really get covered, maybe a lot at this time, like the scene where after because Ezra Miller's character has this secret relationship going on with the football team guy, head of the
Right.
football team, and so that relationship, which one of my favorite scenes in the movie, where Charlie breaks that fight up. Oh God, it just gives me chills every time. Where he's like, "You mess with my friend, I'll blind you." Like, oh God, I was like, yeah. But the scene where they go out and they're telling stories about their own like little dirty things that they have experienced, tall tales, and then they have that moment and he kisses him, and instead of like having this like really like obvious, like if this was a Judd Apatow movie, he would have been like, "Dude, I'm not gay." Like he'd have said something inappropriate, but Logan Lerman's like, "I understand. Like it's okay. Like I'm okay. It's
because
all right."
I think Charlie can recognize in that moment that
Yeah.
Ezra Miller's character is going through something dramatic and traumatic. Because I believe at that point of the movie, that point of the movie there was a bit of a falling out between the friend group, and then now they've come back together. But Ezra Miller's character has been been outed to the social society in the school, and they remember this was after the sequence when they, like you just mentioned, they were beating him up in the middle of the cafeteria. No teacher was around. I don't know where the heck they were.
They're never around.
They're never around when you need them. And of course, all kinds of stuff was happening when it comes to homophobia and the oppression of children in that group. It's kind of evergreen, happens throughout every generation, and this movie does show that, like how they were trying to keep that relationship secret, and then it came out, and then there's a lot of abuse after that, physical abuse. But I was saying, like, Charlie understands in that moment that he's going through something serious, and he's not really making all the best decisions in life in that moment, kind of just desperate and grasping at straws. But Ezra Miller's character was so good, like the devil may care character, who probably put on a lot of outward facade of being like happy-go-lucky and being this big-time rebel, but inside they're going through something that's really, really heavy. And you see that come out in this moment. You see that facade go away, and you see, the real person come out and show themselves. It's very interesting. I also love how this movie celebrates the weirdos. This movie celebrates, the people who are, the who are in the land of misfit toys, which is one of the quotes in this movie. Welcome to the land of misfit toys, which they used in the trailer, which was great. That's what hooked me, was that in the trailer. And this idea that you can be I've always bucked against this idea that there's a right way to live life, and you got to be right, and you got to do things by tradition, by the book, and all that stuff. Like you can't be weird because people won't like you and all this kind of stuff. It's all bullshit and it's all nonsense. The older you get, the more you realize that societal norms are kind of nonsensical, traditional bullshit that they've just been doing for so long.
That much are the ones that are stuck in high school and they never actually
and there's so much negativity in traditional cultural things and whatnot, that like everybody needs to go on their own journey, everybody needs to find their own way in life and all this kind of stuff. And I feel like this movie celebrates that, celebrates that to the nines, which I think is really fantastic. That's why I think this movie has a lot of staying power. Even 13 years later, I feel like it's still just as relevant.
I see a lot of videos on YouTube of people like really celebrating this movie like it's a masterpiece. It's I think people are coming to it now, even now, for the first time, and like being like, dude, this movie's awesome. Like and so like, yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think there's just so many moments that are relatable and
Yeah.
and I mean that thing you're talking about. I mean, Mary Beth is a great example of that. She's a Buddhist punk, like trying to be. Now I would say is almost like the contrarian. Like she is like kind of the extreme version of that idea.
Yeah, remember that little monologue where it's like, yeah, she steals stuff from the store, but she's rich. It's like she's just doing it to do it.
That's the goth friend.
Oh, is this the other one? Okay,
that's the other friend. Yeah,
yeah, the other friend. Okay, but it's still like that whole oxymoron of it all. Like you're being punk just to be punk, but you don't have to be. But that's who you are. That's so like rock and roll and whatnot.
The goth friend wants to be a filmmaker. And yeah, she steals. She's rich, but she steals pants from the store,
which is kind of nuts. This movie is there's so much greatness in this movie. Also, with the soundtrack we talked about.
Oh yeah,
the song "Heroes" by David Bowie is used twice in this movie at pivotal moments. I had never heard that song before, and I knew who David Bowie was. I listened to his music, but I never heard "Heroes" until I saw this movie, and now it's kind of used in other ways.
So in the book, it was originally Landslide from Fleetwood Mac.
Oh, and probably couldn't get the rights.
Well, no, it was that he felt that Heroes had a more of this, I guess, etherealness to it. Like it's a little bit. I think it works a lot. It's a little more of an open song, and Landslide's is a lot more lyrical. It's a lot. You get a lot more words in. It's a lot more. I think Heroes is just it feels like big. It feels
and Landslide, for those of you who know the song, that's a different toned song than Heroes. Heroes, when you listen to it, there's an explosion of celebration and free will in that song that like your aura, your energy just explodes watching it. Landslide is more like introverted, deeper song.
I think it's because the lyrics kind of can like feel more like they connect to the story.
I listened to Landslide and I start crying. I listened to Heroes and maybe I'll cry, but for happier reasons. You know what I mean?
Happy cry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bet favorite moments. Dan, you got a favorite moment in the movie?
Yeah, no, you kind of stole my favorite moment already, Steven. I loved it when Ezra Miller was getting beat up in the cafeteria and he comes in, but you don't see him actually beat those guys up. Yeah. You see him afterwards. He doesn't realize what he had done. What did I do? And, he goes and he beats those guys. I've been in that situation where I was the guy beating people up or watching my brother come to my defense and beating people up in the middle of the gym and stuff like that. So I've been to in that situation. I thought that was a really good, I don't like bullies. So I like the fact that he stood up for his friend and stuff.
Yeah, because he's a freshman and these are like senior kids, and
he
just blacks out on them and just it
goes off. Yeah, I love that part. But, I love the driving down the road with the music and stuff. That stuff's good. There's a lot of good scenes in this movie. I really did like the movie. I haven't revisited since I saw it in the theater all those years ago. But so I was when you picked it as your pick, I was like, oh, good, I get to revisit this. I haven't seen this in a while, and I really liked it back then. So I'm hoping I'll like it. And then, I resonated with me while watching because it was things that I could relate to.
Yeah, good. Yeah, it's good to be able to revisit something and still feel like it. Would you say you probably like the movie even more now than you did initially?
I don't know if I would like it more or less than I liked it back then. I would say it's definitely good stuff. I like it. And I like all the actors. I love seeing the cameos and the people pop up. Oh, there's this because they had the credits ahead of the movie, and you're like, oh, that person's in this. That person's in this. You're like, wow. Then you see him pop up in the movie. Oh, okay, there they are.
There's a small role in the movie by Joan Cusack who plays the doctor in the mental hospital. Yeah. It's like she's in like 2 scenes, maybe. Yeah. And it's like, oh, that's Joan Cusack.
I think it shows a lot of why this material was important to a lot. Apparently, and I don't know if this is right or not, but apparently John Hughes almost made this movie.
That does make sense.
Before he died, they were planning on making this movie with him, and it would have been a dark comedy starring Shia LaBeouf. They would have had Shia LaBeouf in it. I don't think it would have been good.
I don't think it would have been as good as it ended up. Shia LaBeouf was on a streak at that time in his career, though.
Yeah, but I don't think we would have. If it would have been done the John Hughes way, it would have lost all its heart. I think it would have lost a lot of its heart.
And what's interesting, so the book itself, I've been wanting to read it for like 13 years and I haven't. I don't even think I have it in my collection, but either way is that it's not a very long book.
It's not a long book.
And we haven't really seen a lot of authors turned directors adapt their own book before. So this is kind of one of those unique situations. Just off the top of my head, I know Cormac McCarthy wrote the screenplay for The Counselor, the Ridley Scott film.
Yeah, it's terrible.
I know that, it's not great. I know that Stephen King did Maximum Overdrive, which I think is an adaptation of a short story, I think, from him or something like that, or an adaptation of a short story, but that's something else. But you don't really see that. We've seen authors write screenplays before.
Yeah.
I mean, back in the day, F. Scott Fitzgerald, who did The Great Gatsby, he wrote screenplays for certain Hollywood films and whatnot. We've seen that with like Raymond Chandler, Dashiell Hammett, doing film noirs and whatnot. But we haven't really seen that whole author turned director adapting their own book thing, which must be tough because you hate to cut anything out or change things because that's your baby, that's your thing.
I think there's a similar story there of like how Sylvester Stallone was with Rocky, where people wanted to buy this from him to make it, but he just wanted. I think he kept putting it off because he wanted to do it himself. I think ultimately, and I think it was the right move. I mean, sometimes you have to just, until the right time comes. If it's something that means that much to you, you just got to hold on to it. And I think it was the right move. And he gets a lot out of everything. The waiting he did got the right people involved in this, and
he did.
It's just. I mean, it's just you couldn't have picked a better person to play the teacher, Paul Rudd.
Yeah, Paul Rudd's really good. I love those 2010 indie films where you would get kind of random, big time actors to just go in and do these super small roles. Like you had Paul Rudd in this.
J. Jonah, what's his name? J. Jonah Jameson.
J.K. Simmons.
J.K. Simmons. Yeah, J.K. Simmons popped up in a bunch of shit like that.
Oh, what I think of? Oh, what's his name? In Me and Earl and the Dying Girl, plays a teacher, ironically. The Punisher. What's his name?
John
Thomas
Bernthal?
John Bernthal.
Oh, John Bernthal.
Plays the teacher in that. And it's a similar kind of role to the Paul Rudd character, a little more eccentric, but similar kind of mentor-ish type of role.
Yeah.
But it's just so random. That happened in a bunch of indie films. And you're like, that's so cool that they would
Viola
just pop
Davis
in.
would pop up as like the social worker or the whatever. You're like, hey, that's Viola Davis.
Yeah.
Octavia Spencer would be the same thing. Octavia Spencer, Viola Davis. They would pop up in all these like roles as teachers, social workers, principals.
Well, I think they understand how important them things are to normal people. That's why it's good to get a great actor to do it.
And it's probably
that can be sincere and
And it's probably not that long of a shoot time. Maybe it's a couple of days or so in terms of production to shoot these scenes. There's so many great moments of the movie. Like I said, there's those two scenes in the car driving through the tunnel, the lighting, the way in which that whole thing is shot from the angles, and of course with the soundtrack of Heroes by David Bowie showing. But there's this one small shot. The first time we see Emma Watson's character Sam is at the football game, and the way in which the angle is from Logan Lerman's perspective is he's looking up, and she's silhouetted with the lights that are overdoing the stadium, so she has this glow to her. And right away, just visual filmmaking, you can tell, like, to Logan Lerman's perspective, she's like this angelic character. Yeah. She's like larger than life.
That way on purpose, yeah. Like she's like an angel.
She's like the way she's like glowing. She's like out of reality to him. It reminded me so much of the way in which Grace Kelly's character is introduced in Rear Window. She's introduced when Jimmy Stewart's character opens his eyes, and all you see is just Grace Kelly's face in the entire frame in Rear Window. And she's framed in a similar kind of bright lighting. And I'm like, that looked so similar. It's probably done on
Marilyn
purpose.
Monroe in 7-Year Itch, which she's over the great, and she's like this fucking perfection.
Yeah, there's just this iconic view, and that's the way in which they see her. And that's the way in which we're introduced to her from his perspective, which is endlessly fascinating. But yeah, there's so many other good moments of this movie.
One I'll bring up too is I think is a really pivotal moment, and I was heading towards it earlier when we were talking about like the trauma both of them share, is the scene where she gives him his first kiss.
Oh,
I think is a very important scene for many reasons, but also like like at the heart of it, it's like it's a great thing that anybody would want to have a friend that would, I mean, for there was a part of me for a while that thought that this is kind of bullshit, like why would she do that to him? Because she knows he likes her.
Mm.
And then, like she like kisses him, is like, but I'm still going to go out with this guy. For the longest time, that was my perspective on it. I was like, it's kind of a fun.
Why would she play him like
Why
that?
would
Like,
she
is she
tease-
playing with him?
Yeah, like is she messing with him? But ultimately, like when you understand that they're both going through the same trauma, they've both gone through the same trauma. She don't even know that he's gone through that yet, but that she's trying to make sure that somebody she really cares about doesn't have a bad experience on something that you want to have a good experience on, which she didn't. For her first experience missing was with her dad's friend.
Boss.
Like it's gross. Her having that perspective, she wanted to make sure that, not knowing that he'd already had that trauma, that he thought she was trying to help him, but ultimately it ends up being a trigger more than anything for what comes, what we learn more about his own trauma.
That kind of triggers his PTSD, and which you see kind of slowly advance as the movie goes on.
And then there's things that maybe this is what people wish they would have explored more, is that we know that they kissed, but we don't know what other conversations had, because then it skips to the next day. She's got to go to college, and like something happened there. We don't know. Did they have? My guess is that there was a conversation where she learned about. He talked to her about what happened to him, is what I would assume happened. I don't think they had sex. I think maybe they kissed, maybe more, but like I bet you that they talked.
It's interesting that you bring that up, because we as an audience. And what the film kind of does is it holds all of that revelation really to the third act of the movie.
Yeah.
Really to the very end, pretty much holds it underneath the surface and doesn't really reveal that all to the end. And then he goes to the mental hospital. He stays there. After he gets out of there, he never really reveals whether he tells his friends about where he was or why he was there or what they know.
I mean, we know that they knew, because Patrick makes a joke about it, like, when they meet up at the end, said he's scheduled himself for another breakdown. So they know, that he was away for that reason. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, it's I think that moment in the movie, is like something I think people have a problem with, but also I think subtly is like
maybe a director's cut would be. Would you want a director's cut of this?
No, I think this movie's perfect the way it's.
Okay.
I love it.
I don't think it needs to be any more revelatory than it is.
Okay.
No,
right.
I like we've talked about with many other films. Like I think you sometimes have to extrapolate what your version of that truth of that movie is,
gotcha.
And I think to me, in that moment, it was obviously a trigger. We know from just visually that moment was a trigger for him. She's touching his leg. He gets visuals of his aunt touching his leg. Like it's obviously a trigger. And so I think in that moment, they get really close because they both share something that they're just finding out in that moment. Cause she tells him for the first time, "Oh, my first kiss was my dad's boss." So he's like, "Wow, that's weird." And then when she gets triggered, then now he probably talks about his issues, and probably not as much as she would like, but she knows she's probably understanding him a little better. And then, when they come back together later at the end, their relationship, their bond's even more there, and, it's one of them things where when the movie ends, God, I wish I could stay with these characters and get another 2 hours of this movie.
Would you want a sequel though? Would you want a sequel if you had an opportunity to see where they
probably not?
No?
Probably
Okay.
not. But I really like, God, I hope so much. And this is probably why you hang on to this movie and love this movie for people that do, is that you hope so much for all these characters that they go on to do good things. And, I want Logan, I hope they are together, or at least they try to be together. You want to see Sam. I like to think about that. And that's what makes movies timeless and they stick with you, is that you can have your own view of where they went and where they that's That's why I love storytelling. The stories I come up with and the canon I come up with in my head's better a lot of the times than what they end up making sequels for movies for. Like, so yeah, I love this movie. I could watch this movie every day.
Yeah. So I assume that on the philometer, you're at the obsessed.
Oh, I'm obsessed.
I'm at the obsessed. Clearly.
Yeah. And Dan's
now we
at
just have
good
to find
stuff.
out where
He's
Dan
just
is.
under it. He said he was at good stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He likes it.
I mean, I do like this movie. It's just these coming of age movies. Just I just don't resonate with them as much as other types of movies because my coming of age is so weird. So these type of stereotypical coming of age films.
I don't think they're I don't think this is stereotypical, but I think it just everybody comes in, and you're so far from the coming of age. You haven't. Ours was not that long ago. Yours is like 15 years ahead of ours. So yeah, it's not. You're a little bit past it, but yeah, everybody has different pathways, and that's what this movie celebrates. Everybody's got a different pathway. Everybody's got a different.
Well, it's a good movie, though. It really is a good movie. It really has good messages and good themes to that it explores, which is what you want in a movie. So that's good.
Yeah, and just to top it off, I thought for first time directing, I thought visually this movie just really it could have been made in the 70s. Like it could have been a 1970s indie film, and I would have believed it. Like it
is actually very impressive to go from one medium to another and to be just. I mean,
really, he goes through three. He writes a book, then he writes a screenplay, then he directs
the screenplay.
Yeah, I mean,
it's all very impressive. You don't see people who are very like a triple threat. You know, they have like triple threats. Well, he's kind of a different type of triple threat.
Yeah. Now, Steven Chbosky would go on to do the movie Wonder as well, I believe. Yeah, he did Wonder, which was pretty good too. And then I don't know that he's directed. Has he directed it? Anything else? I think that's it. He's only directed them two movies.
Well, he's directed a couple others. He directed Dear Evan Hansen.
That
adaptation of that Broadway musical, which
I didn't hear good
not
things
very
about
much
that
like.
one.
And then this year he came out with that movie Nona's, which was on Netflix.
I don't even know.
With who's in that? Is that Vince Vaughn? No.
Yeah, it's got Vince Vaughn in it. Yep.
It's one where they open. Yeah, Vince Vaughn opens an Italian restaurant, and it's all like Italian grandmothers are the chefs, and he tries to make that work. It's decent, you know, if you got like time to kill and you want to check out a decent Netflix movie, it's not bad. It's average.
I think his first two outings, Wonder and this, Wonder's good. It's not as good as this, but like it's pretty solid. Like another essentially coming of age type of story. This time with a kid that has like a physical disformity, and he wears a helmet all the time. It's pretty good. It's pretty sweet. I think that one's a little bit more what people would consider manipulative when you're talking about like sentimentality in movies. We've talked about that before, but it's a little bit more like, oh, well, of course this movie's going to make people tear up. It's about a kid that, you know, like, it's kind of a layup, you know, like,
Interesting, similar themes to kind of Perks of Being a Wallflower, this idea of being, you know, an outsider, and being different than other people and being afraid of how people are going to react to you and all that kind of stuff. But obviously it's in, you know, due to this kid's physical...
I mean, I think the difference is though, is something like that is something a lot of people say, but that's all a perspective thing. Like you might think that you're an outsider, but really, like I talked about earlier about myself, if I'd have just taken some chances, I might not have felt that way. A lot of it's about just, if you tried, sometimes people just don't try because they're too scared. You know, you might have fit in with a lot of people, you know, but it's that anxiety, that thing that makes us outsiders, I think, a lot of times. And it's, of course, over time, you might decide you like a lot of things that other people don't like. And at least from my perspective, when it comes to like how I went through that time, I think I made myself an outsider because I was unwilling to participate in anything other than baseball, because that's what my parents made me do. But like, I didn't start finding my own way until a lot later.
I didn't start figuring things out until ironically around the time Perks of Being a Wallflower came out, which would
Yeah.
have been 2012,
It was
because that's
there.
when I started getting into movies heavily, and movies really became my pathway into what I became, what I am as a person, ironically so. Uh, but speaking of which, I do want to choose my next film that we'll be talking about
Let's
in
do
2
it.
weeks'
Let's
time.
do it.
All right, so we are going back to a similar time period as the early 2010s, but we'll be going 1 year earlier with the movie 50-50, which
Ah,
was my favorite movie, of 2011. So much so that I bought the poster for it, the big old one sheet 27 by 40, framed it, and I had it hung up for so many years and still have it framed. It's not hung up anymore because I needed I needed the wall space for more shelves, so I had to take all my posters down. But either way, I had the poster, and the poster is basically this cover here, just
yeah.
in larger form. Um, and yeah, the movie starring Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Seth Rogen, Anna Kendrick, Bryce Dallas Howard's in this movie, Angelica Houston's in this movie. And this is a movie who directed Jonathan Levine, and this was his
Yeah.
first movie, I believe. He would go on to direct Warm Bodies after this, which I think is kind of underrated. Ironically, is Perks of Being a Wallflower, one of the trailers that plays is Warm Bodies.
Mm.
Coincidentally, that's always fun when you go back and watch movies that you bought, 10 or 20 years ago. You watch the trailers for like, hey, this is also coming out soon, and it's movies that you don't really remember. But I remember Warm Bodies, underrated movie.
Oh yeah.
But 50-50, like I said, this was done at the time where Joseph Gordon-Levitt was starting kind of a rise on his career. Now, he had been an actor since he was a kid, but I feel like the early 2010s or late 2000s was when he was really starting to become more popular. Obviously, he had been in Inception. He was in Dark Knight Rises. He was, what else was he in at the time? Don John, which was his directing debut, and whatnot. And then Anna Kendrick also on the rise as well at the same time with the Pitch Perfect movies and all that stuff. But this movie spoke to me on a very personal level when it came out, and I've loved it ever since. So 50-50 will be the next one we talk about.
Cool. I love it. All right. Well, all right, guys. It's been real. That was Perks Being a Wallflower. Next time we're doing 50-50. If of course you are not able to watch this, you can catch it on audio later. Of course, watch out for Chasing Labels coming this Monday. We'll have more Unwatched Pile this month, and of course the series premiere of Movie Mutations, November 16th, 7 p.m. You'll see a little bit more details this week. I'll be dropping like the thumbnail with a little bit more details on who's involved and stuff. So be ready for that. And hey, guys, you should take that trip down memory lane every once in a while. It's nice and sweet, just like this music. Let's do it, guys. All right. Bye. Hey, it's okay to be a wallflower. Hey, I feel infinite.
Yeah.